Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Combot Collective, doing our 7th installment of the TCC10. Finally, having its own standalone episode here. This is something we're trying out new here at the Combot Collective. I'm, of course, your host, Sterling Brown, here as always, breaking down our top 10, maybe our committee of 4 here at the Combot Collective. It's just an update of power rankings for the seventh week of our Battlebots regular season here. A brand new robot, of course, entering the top 10 for the very first time. Probably easy to guess which one that is. And a robot entering the top 3 that I would have never thought would have come close to entering the top 3 at the start of the season. We're not going to waste too much time, and let's jump into our TCC 10 for Week 7 of Battlebots 2021. Of course, if you like what you're doing here, please subscribe, please comment, please let everybody know about the Combot Collective, and of course, please follow us on Instagram or on Facebook. You can find those in our description here below. And in our Linktree, you can find our Discord community. Please feel free to join that. We update everyone about videos as soon as they go up, even quicker than we do on our Facebook or on our Instagram. And stay tuned here. We always are posting more videos, and hope you enjoy the episode. It is a very interesting top 10 here. We have a good handful of honorable mentions that have just missed the cut. Of course, Lockjaw, even at 0-2. One of the most impressive 0-2 runs we've ever seen in Battlebots. We have P1 here as well. Shouts to P1, of course. Still super stoked about the wheel. We had talked about this in the news bit. If you haven't seen that news for this week, we're talking all about this P1 wheel. Super excited for that. Thank you again to the P1 team as well. Ribot and Copperhead also sitting at the end of this list. Copperhead has been on the list for a while now. Fell off the list just because of inactivity. We're probably going to see it pop up on the list again, especially after a win this week. We'll have to see, though. It's taking on the robots, sitting at number 10. What a great transition by me. Look at that. Fusion here. Fusion just barely hanging on. I guess it's sitting at number 10 because, they were both, of course, Copperhead was number 9. Fusion was number 10 last week. Fusion staying while Copperhead goes here. I guess just because of the impressiveness of the win. Of course, Copperhead's last appearance. It was a split decision victory, but a victory nonetheless, while Fusion, dominant victory against Combot. Both of them had very proper opponents, but Fusion still sitting pretty here at number 10. It's going to be very fascinating to see how this Fusion versus Copperhead matchup goes down. We'll be talking more about that in our prediction episode, of course, this week, but my gist in that episode is that it's going to be a close fight. It's going to be a quick fight, though. I think it's going to be under a minute 30. I got to think it's going to be Copperhead's win, personally. But Fusion might be able to hold its spot. If it holds its spot, it's definitely not going to be number 10 next week. It's going to be shooting a decent amount up. Competition's getting tight here. We'll just have to see. Shatter, of course, facing the red-hot, no pun intended, Blacksmith in that second round, showing off the Merry Special. And I said it last week. I won't emphasize on it too much. I've already said it a lot. This does look like it's going to be the future of Hammerbots. This is a very overkill style design, but it gives you more of an area for contact. You got the blade style weapon. Seems like it's more resilient. You don't have to worry about your axe head blowing off. Maybe this thing can come off apart in pieces. We'll just have to see, though. Whoever Shatter does end up getting for a third round, if it does get a third opponent, it's going to do some crazy damage. I want to see the Merry Special fight more robots. It's an exciting thing to see in action. It's a chain sniper. It's versatile. The way they can swing it backwards. It's big, too. They lug it around like it's like a Buster Blade or something. I'm a big fan of Shatter. They've won me over big time lately. And the Merry Special is such a cool weapon as we move forward here in the TCC10. A robot sitting at number 8 last week, still sitting at number 8 this week. Talking about Jackpot here, the hometown robot. Not much to talk about here. Keeping its spot after its 2-0 knockout win against Malice. I'm sorry, sitting at 2-0 with a knockout win against Malice. Jackpot, of course, holding that big intangible about being the hometown team. I brought it up at the beginning of the year and a few times throughout the season, going to bed in your own home. It's such a unique thing to them. Even though they did say in AMA that they didn't like it as much because it didn't feel as special because they were heading their own home. I kind of don't buy it just because it's a smaller thing. Even if they don't notice it, it's a thing that, it's a nice thing to go home to. You see your pets, you see your family. after a hard work day at Battlebots. It's a nice thing. Who knows who they're going to be fighting for their third opponent? That's one of those things we don't know right now. Um, they're set for the playoff though. They're locked for the playoffs. Probably going to be in the top 16 half of the seeds. Excited to see what they do in the future here. Falling all the way down to number 7 now, Whiplash has been on a bit of a steady decline. Of course, it hasn't fought since episode 2, so there's a reason for that. Looking very good, of course, in that Bloodsport win. I can only talk about that win so many times. So instead, let's talk about what's coming up for it. Whiplash may very well be knocked off the list completely, or at least at the very bottom of the list. I can't imagine this list without Whiplash. In its upcoming main event this week against Scorpius, as we see here. It has been posted though in photos already that fight has Whiplash not using its vertical spinner attachment, which is a bit of an eyebrow raiser though. In our predictions video, Pory did note out that there are some beater bars on the top of Whiplash that seem to be just designed for structure to prevent Whiplash caving in at the top like it did against Sawblaze, which might end up being a smart move. You don't want Scorpius getting too much visible damage. Of course, Scorpius looking to get back on the list. Someone's going to end up on the list after this week. It's going to be fascinating to see as of who. Though for now, Whiplash sitting at lucky number 7, declining a little bit in the list. Hopefully, we'll see it go up next week. Another robot on the decline here despite the 2-0 record. Uppercut, we talked about last week. An explosive victory, literally. Just blew up the flamethrower system on free shipping. We all knew it was going to happen. It was it was the worst kept secret in Battlebots for a while. They put in pretty much every promotional piece, but it still looked absolutely fantastic. The one thing though, like we were talking about in that episode, Uppercut was technically immobile after the impact. A few impacts later, I should say, after free shipping's wedge was taken off. Moving with only one wheel, I think, in the red square, just kind of catwalking around. Not even catwalking, more so spinning. If free shipping didn't plant itself on the wall, this might be a very different outcome. Just unfortunate for free shipping, as brutal as it was. We could have had a real Cobalt versus Duck situation on our hands, like I said last week, but we didn't. Free shipping, Uppercut now sitting at number 6 here. Moved back due to the 2 robots that really rose up in the rankings this week, one of which we'll talk about next as we enter our top 5 here. And of course, coming at number 5, making their TCC10 debut, our biggest rising robot this week, finally appearing on the list at a surprise 2-0. I certainly did not predict Hypershock going 2-0. I know every other season they seem to do pretty good. 2016 they did great. 2019 they did great. 2021 they're doing great. Big surprise. 2-0. They dominated Slammo, easy KO against them in the opener of an episode a few weeks back. And just now, fresh off this main event victory against Lockjaw, these guys did it yet again. Out of the arena. You know me, I talk about it a lot in these episodes. I'm a big sucker for the out of the arena. I love seeing robots getting thrown out of the box. And we got it here. I'm glad that they didn't give him the DQ. It was obviously unintentional, a lot more unintentional looking than the Hydra out of the arena, which also seemed fine to me. Hypershock, though, absolute badass of a win here. They went back and forth against Lockjaw. I'm sorry. I don't even think this fight went 2 minutes. Not even 2 minutes. It was just a proper slugfest, back and forth impacts. Both robots losing a front wheel. Hypershock looked great here, even despite the heavy damage, still showing great reliability, landing heavy damage blows. I believe they switched to motorcycle chains for a weapon chain, or maybe drive chains this year. Seems to be working out because Hypershock has looked fantastic. The bot's fantastic. They said no more gimmicks. There's no more Shriemek on this robot. It's fully sleeked out. Looks like an F1 car in the arena. I want to see this thing fight P1 big time because that would just be a battle of 2 car-like robots. We were so close to getting in the bounty events last year, but I digress. Hypershock sitting at number 5 and will likely be on the list for a couple of weeks now due to displacement. I'm excited to see what these guys do. Hopefully we'll finally see these guys make the playoffs. And now, of course, talking about a robot that really blew up at King of Bots a couple of years back, but really, really blew up last year when it placed top 4 at Battlebots 2020. Tantrum sitting at number 4, a gradual decline. It was at number 2 week before last, number 3 the week before that, and of course now number 4. Just due to inactivity, hopefully we'll see a third fight for Tantrum here. Of course, 2-0 with the win over Lucky. A very good win over Lucky at that, and also a very good win against Malice. 2 fights that, like in these last few, we've talked to death, so we won't do too much talking over that. Hopefully we do see a third fight for Tantrum. they've looked really good. We know they do have a fight against Gigabyte coming up. Who knows when that's going to be? I assume maybe that is the third fight. I would have to guess that is the third fight. And now coming into our top three here, let's look at the biggest gainer in my opinion. I mean, of course, Hypershock probably the biggest gainer. This robot was on the list last week, but the big winner of this week, I should say, moving up here with probably the statement win of the week. Really, this is a fantastic episode, but I would have to give the statement win to these guys. Of course, Team Revolution and Rotator sitting at number 3 here. Black Dragon, a top 4 robot last year. Arguably the best robot from Brazil right now in terms of heavyweight competitions, and arguably the best team from Brazil for sure. Rotator, though, made it look easy. They just gutted apart that front wedge. Gashes everywhere by the end of the fight. Got some really solid impacts. Took out the weapon, of course. Big battery fire coming out of Black Dragon, though we always knew Black Dragon is a super durable robot, and that's never really been something that phased them. Despite that, though, 2 really good judges' decision wins for Rotator, and that just shows the quality of these judges' decision wins for it to be 2 JDs and Rotator still to be sitting at number 3 right here. But I mean, they've ripped Kraken up literally. Wally the Narwhal destroyed, left wheel destroyed, flamethrower system destroyed, and now on Black Dragon, battery system destroyed, weapon destroyed, front wedge destroyed. Rotator might be the most destructive robot of the year again, and might actually deserve to win the shot. Might deserve to win the award this year. I always thought Icewave deserved the 2018 one personally, but I digress. Rotator has been utterly insane this year. And are probably going to keep it up for the rest of the season. You'd have to imagine. Coming in at number 2 here, of course, still stagnant, sitting in the same spot. Very similar top 2, very familiar top 2 this week. But here, the defending Battlebots champion at number 2, Endgame, 2-0, 2 KOs, 1 over Hydra, 1 over Witch Doctor. Definitely one of the stronger strength of schedule this year, maybe even the strongest strength of schedule, of course, taking on the best robot coming into 2020 and arguably one of the best robots coming into this year besides the champion itself. Endgame has pretty much lived up to the hype despite the wonky fork issues it had at the beginning of the year. Maybe without those issues, it sits at number 1 right now. You know what I mean? It might be sitting at number 1 pretty much the whole season like our number 1 has. But talking about Endgame here, looked so good in that win against Witch Doctor. Showed why the ground game is such a big factor, like they talked about a lot in that episode. Witch Doctor trying to run with a straight plow wedge, while Endgame, of course, rocking the wedgelets like it usually does, those long forks. Looked really good there. 2 really solid, impactful strikes at the end. Whoever they give Endgame for their third fight, it's going to be a big-time fight. I don't know how you top Witch Doctor and Hydra, but I guess we'll just have to see. Maybe a fight against our number 1 robot, who we jump into right now. And that'll do it here for our TCC10 Week 7. To recap our top 10 here, of course, the honorable mentions again were Lockjaw, P1, Ribot, and Copperhead. Robots that we might see entering the list next week, who knows. But for our top 10, of course, themselves, number 10, Fusion, number 9, Shatter, number 8, Jackpot, number 7, Whiplash, number 6, Uppercut, number 5, Hypershock, number 4, Tantrum, and in our top 3, number 3, Rotator with their big win this week, number 2, the defending champion, Endgame, and number 1, a robot who has yet to leave that number 1 position since we started this whole thing, Sawblaze. So who knows who's going to end up being in the number 1 when the playoffs end up coming. It's going to be very fascinating to see. But as we wrap it up here, of course, I'm Sterling Brown. Thank you so much for listening. The outro you're hearing right now is done by our team member, Sevalant. And thank you so much.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.